välkommen till min kanal. Jag heter Thomas and today it's all about Suger Candy and Balloons. Today we're going to explore Gränna. It's a small city, small place just outside Jönköping with roughly 3,000 people living there. Gränna is located in a hilly area located on the eastern shore of Lake Vättern opposite Visingsö. The city was founded in 1652 and has a rich history where we tell about polkagrisar, polka pig making, which was started by Amalia Eriksson in 1859. The word polka pig comes from the polka dance, which was a hot trend at the time and a popular ballroom dance until the late 19th century, and is also given name for the polka dot pattern. Pig was just a common word for sweet candy. In addition, André's polar expedition by the engineer Salomon August André traveled across the Arctic in 1897 with the hydrogen balloon Örnen. Okay, and when we have this sugar rush, let's go over to the second story for today, and that's about Andreas polar expedition. Most of the photos I will show is from the original camera they brought with them on the expedition. And they took over 200 photos during the expedition, and they were sealed inside metal containers and left on the ice. And even though they have been left untouched for 90 years before they were trying to be developed, there were 93 of the photos could be saved. The second half of the 19th century has often been called the heroic age of Antarctic exploration. The inhospitable and dangerous Arctic and Antarctic regions appealed powerful to the imagination of the age, as a challenge to be conquered by technology, ingenuity and mainly daring. Solomon August André, born in 1854 in Gränna, an engineer at the Patent Office in Stockholm, shared the enthusiasm. A keen balloonist, André proposed a plan to let wind propel a hydrogen balloon across the Arctic Sea to the Bering Strait to fetch up in Alaska, Canada or Russia, and passing near or even right over the North Pole on its way. In 1893, André purchased his own balloon, the Svea, and subsequently made 9 journeys with it, starting from either Stockholm or Gothenburg, and traveling a combined distance of 1,500 kilometers, 930 miles. In the prevailing westerly winds, the Svea flight had a strong tendency to carry him uncontrollably out of the Baltic Sea and drag his basket periodically along the surface of the water or slam into one of the many rocky islands in the Stockholm archipelago. On one occasion, André was blown clear across the Baltic to Finland. During a couple of Svea flights, André tested and tried out the drag rope steering technique, which he had developed and wanted to use in his project North Pole expedition. Drag ropes, which hang from the balloon basket and drag part of their length on the ground, are designed to counteract the tendency of lighter than aircraft to travel at the same speed as the wind, a situation that makes steering by sail impossible. The friction on the rope was intended to slow the balloon to a point where the sails could have an effect beyond that of making the balloon rotate on its own axle. André reported and presumably believed that with drag rope steering he had succeeded in deviation about 10 degrees either way from the wind direction. Uses of drag ropes prone to snapping, falling off or becoming entangled with each other or the ground, in addition to be very ineffective, is not considered by any modern expert to be a useful steering technique. A lecture in 1895 for the Royal Swedish Academy of Science, André thrilled the audience of geographers and meteorologists. A polar expedition balloon, he explained, would need to fulfill 4 conditions. It must have enough lifting power to carry 3 people and all their scientific equipment, advanced cameras for aerial photography, provisions for 4 months, and ballast, altogether about 3,000 kilo or 6,600 pounds. Second, it must remain the gas well enough to stay aloft for 30 days. Third, the hydrogen gas must be manufactured and the balloon filled at the Arctic launch site. And fourth, it must be at least somewhat steerable. André gave a glowing optimistic account for each of which these requirements would be met. Larger balloons have been constructed in France, he claimed, and more airtight too. Some French balloons have remained hydrogen filled for over a year without appreciable loss of buoyancy. As for the hydrogen, filling the balloon at the launch site could easily be done with the help of mobile hydrogen manufacturing units. For the steering, he referred to his own drag rope experience with Svea, stating that a deviation of 27 degrees from the wind direction could be routinely achieved. André assured the audience that Arctic summer weather was uniquely suitable for ballooning. The midnight sun would enable observations around the clock, having the voyage time required and do away with all the need for anchoring at night, which might otherwise be a dangerous business. Neither would the balloon's buoyancy be adversely affected by the cold of the night. The drag rope steering technique was particularly well adapted for a region where the ground consists of ice, with low friction and free of vegetation, he said. The Royal Swedish Academy approved André's expense calculation of 130,000 Swedish crowns in all, corresponding in just under $1 million in today's money. André's proposed expedition also elicited considerable international interest, and the European and American newspaper reading public was curious about the project that seems as modern as scientific as books of the contemporary author Julius Verne. The large support team cut away the last ropes holding the balloon, and it rose slowly. Moving out over the water, it was pulled so far down by the friction of the several 100-meter long drag ropes against the ground as to dip the basket in the water. The friction also twisted the ropes around, detaching them from their screw holes. The holes were a new safety feature that André had reluctantly been persuaded to add, where ropes that got caught on the ground could be more easily be dropped. Most of the ropes unscrew at once, and 530 kilo, 1200 pound rope were lost, where the three explorers could simultaneously be seen dumping 200 kilo or 450 pound of sand overboard to get the basket clear the water. That's 740 kilo or 1600 pound of essential weight was thus lost in the first few minutes. Before it was well clear of the launch site, Eagle had turned from supposedly a steerable craft into an ordinary hydrogen balloon with a few ropes hanging from it, at the mercy of the winds. Its crew had no means to direct it in any particular goal and had too little ballast for stability. Lightened, the balloon rose to 700 meters or 2,300 feet, an imaginable height where the lower air pressure made the hydrogen escape all the faster through the 8 million little holes. Free flight lasted for 10 hours and 30 minutes and was followed by another 41 hours of bumper riding with frequent ground contact before the inevitable final crash. Eagle traveled for 2 days and 3.5 hours altogether, during which time, according to Andrea, none of the three men got any sleep. The definite landing appears to have been gentle. Neither the men nor the homing pigeons in the wicker cage were hurt, and none of the equipment was damaged, not even the delicate optical instruments and cameras. Eagle had been stocked with safety equipment such as guns, snowshoes, sleds, skis, a tent, a small boat in the form of a bundle of bent sticks to be assembled and covered with balloon silk. The balloon had carried a lot of food, of a kind adept more for a balloon voyage than for travel on foot. Andrea had reasoned that they might as well throw excess food overboard and sand if losing weight was necessary. There were therefore less ballast and large amount of heavy type provisions, including 200 liters of water and some crates of champagne, port, beer, etc. By the time they crashed, they had thrown some of the provisions overboard. The three men took most of the rest with them, other necessities, such as guns, tents, ammunition and cooking utensils, making a load on each sled of more than 200 kilo, 440 pound. This was not realistic as it broke the sleds, wore out the men. On 12th of September, the explorers resigned themselves to wintering on the ice and camped on a large floe, letting the ice take them to where it would. Strindberg's diary indicates that on October 5th the party landed on the island. Strindberg then wrote Snowstorm Renaissance on October 6 and the single word moving on October 7. It is inferred from the incoherent and badly damaged last pages of the diary that the three men were all dead within a few days of moving onto the island. For the next 33 years, the fate of the expedition was shrouded in mystery, and its disappearance became part of the cultural lore in Sweden and to a certain extent elsewhere. It was actively sought for a couple of years and remained the subject of myth and rumors, with frequent international newspaper reportings of possible finding. The Norwegian Bratvåg expedition, studying the glaciers and seas of the Svalbard archipelago, found the remains of André expedition in August 1930.